Alrighty, scholars. Today we're going to embark on a grammar workout as it pertains to an adjective clause. We've been talking a lot about clauses, independent versus a dependent clause. An independent clause has a subject and a predicate that create a complete thought. And dependent clause has a subject and a predicate as well, but it creates an incomplete thought, right? And we've been working a lot with clauses, not just being able to distinguish between an independent and a dependent clause, but also to be able to evaluate the functionality of these particular clauses. Whether or not they're working adverbally or adjectively, okay? Today we're going to learn about the adjective clause, which is synonymous with relative clause. And it's synonymous with relative clause because a relative clause starts with its same conjunction. It's a restrictive conjunction, not a coordinating conjunction, fanboys, not a subordinating conjunction, awubas, but a relative conjunction. So we're going to learn about those relative conjunctions in just a moment, okay? You can use these particular clauses, these adjectival relative clauses, to add more details to your writing. So for example, adjective clause is synonymous with relative clause. So I'm going to draw parallel lines. They're parallel. They mean the same thing. They modify nouns, these adjective relative clauses. They add more details. It's a dependent clause. It's not a phrase because remember, a clause is a clause because it has a subject and a predicate, right? So it can contain a subject and a verb, subject and a predicate. It makes a statement about a person, place, or thing that is named in the sentence. And here's the really important part. These are the restrictive conjunctions. It usually begins with who, which, whose, that, where, when, whom. Those are restrictive conjunctions. And they're going to start these adjective relative clauses. And they're going to function, those conjunctions, as the subject of that clause. Okay? Any questions so far? Notice here the last bullet point, the location of these adjective clauses, these relative clauses. It can split the subject and the verb, this adjective clause, or it can close the sentence. True or false? An adjective relative clause can open a sentence. Everyone, true or false? False. Very good job. It cannot open the sentence. It can just close. Any questions, comments, concerns so far? Very good. Good job. All right. Notice that an adjective is different from an adjective clause. Look at this first simple sentence, an example. Sam adopted a huge puppy. What's the adjective in this sentence? Somebody raise your hand. Krista? Huge. Very good job. And then we have an adjective clause. Sam adopted a puppy, comma, which was huge. That contains an adjective clause.
Bigger than her.
The adjective clause is underlined on this slide. What is the subject of this adjective clause? Does anybody know? Raise your hand if you know the subject of this adjective clause.
Is your puppy happy?
That's not a puppy anymore.
That's a pretty huge puppy, I
That's a
know.
grown dog.
Does anybody know what the subject is of this adjective relative clause? Somebody raise your hand. The subject of this adjective relative clause. Sam?
Which?
Which. It's going to be that conjunction. Which. Very good. Does anybody know the predicate, the verb of this adjective clause? Drake?
No.
Which is the subject? The predicate's going to come next.
Was.
Was. Was is the predicate. Good. Was is the verb. Was is the predicate. Which type of verb is was? Which type of predicate is was if huge finishes this particular adjective clause, this relative clause? Kayla? It's a linking verb, yeah. So linking verbs connect the subject to subject complements. Huge, what do we call that in standard American English as it relates to grammar speak? Please don't talk. Sam?
Predicate adjective.
Predicate adjective, good job. Huge is a predicate adjective. This is your first taste of an adjective relative clause. Sam adopted a puppy, comma, which was huge. Which was huge, which subject, was predicate, linking verb, huge, predicate adjective. Questions? Yes, Victor.
What does adopted mean?
It means adopted. It's just a typo, unfortunately. Yeah. Adapted means to be taken from some original
I
source.
know, but like in the sentence, it doesn't make sense.
It didn't make sense. You're right. Let's continue. Look at some of these examples of sentences that contain adjective relative clauses. Let's look at the first example. The twins, comma, who had finished their homework, comma, were allowed to watch half an hour of TV. Somebody tell me, what is the adjective relative clause in this simple sentence? Somebody who hasn't spoken yet today and knows the answer. Good job, Sam. Someone who hasn't spoken and knows what the adjective relative clause is. Anya?
Who had finished their homework?
That's it. Good. Who had finished their homework. Beautiful. What's the subject of that particular adjective relative clause? Anya?
Who?
Yes. Who? The conjunction. Uh-huh. What's the verb phrase? The predicate. Anantika?
Had finished.
Had finished. You have two verbs in succession right next to each other. Which verb type is the first verb always going to be? Victor?
Helper.
Helper. Yeah. Helping verb. Good.
Helping slash auxiliary.
You're right. Helping verb slash auxiliary verb. Good job. Finished is an action verb. It's followed by their homework. Which type of action verb is finished if their homework follows it? Anantika?
Transitive.
Yeah, transitive action verb. Good job. Which makes their homework a what, Anantika?
Direct object.
Direct object. Very good job. Notice that for this first example, the adjective relative clause is splitting the subject, the twins, and the predicate were allowed. All right? Let's look at the second example. Any questions about the first? Very good. All right. The man on the loudspeaker begins calling everyone over to the track for the first event, comma, which is the 20-yard dash. What is the adjective relative clause in the second example? Somebody raise your hand. Anantika, you're doing a great job. Somebody else who knows the answer. Sung.
Which is the 20-yard dash?
Which is the 20-yard dash. Very good job. Excellent. What's the subject, Sung, of this adjective relative clause? Which. Very good. What's the predicate? Somebody raise your hand. Victor?
Is.
Is. Beautiful. The 20-yard dash. Which type of verb is is? Does anybody know the verb type for is? Sam?
It's linking.
Linking verb. Yeah. So it's a linking verb because there's a subject complement here. The 20-yard dash is a what, Sam? It's a predicate nominative. Renaming which? Something else. The 20-yard dash. Predicate nominative. Very good job. So the first example, we had the adjective relative clause split the subject and the verb. And in the second example, we had the adjective relative clause close the sentence, right? Let's look at the third example. Little John, comma, whose eyes were quicker than most, comma, should have seen the whole, comma, but all his attention was on the stars. Somebody raise your hand and tell me the adjective relative clause here. Joanna.
Whose eyes were quicker than most.
That's it. Good. Whose eyes were quicker than most. Beautiful. What's the subject of that adjective relative clause? Anya?
Whose.
Whose eyes? Good. Uh-huh. What is the predicate? What's the verb of this adjective relative clause? Victor?
Were.
Were. Very good job. Which type of verb is were if quicker follows it?
Soon.
Linking verb. Yeah. Linking verbs connect the subject, whose eyes, to a subject complement. What is quicker in grammar speak and standard American English? It's a predicate adjective. Uh-huh. Good job. Very good job. So we saw the adjective relative clause split the subject and the verb in example 1, close it in example 2, and split it again, the subject and the verb, Little John should have seen in example 3. Right? Any questions, comments, or concerns so far? Somebody raise your hand and tell me, why haven't we seen the adjective relative clause open the sentence? Somebody raise your hand. Why haven't we seen the adjective relative clause open the sentence yet? Caleb?
Because if it opens the sentence, it's an adverb because you don't know any noun that it can describe. And so at the start of the clause, it can only describe the action.
All right. Yeah, the adjective relative clause cannot open the sentence. It can only split the subject and the verb or come in the closer position. Are we ready to move forward? Excellent job. we see these underlined here, these adjective relative clauses. We did a little more than just underline them, but there they are. All right, we're going to look at some of these matching examples here, and you're going to practice injecting these adjective relative clauses into the sentences that are over on the left, okay? And you're going to have to figure out which adjective relative clause on the right fits the content of what's on the left. So let's start with number 1. I'm going to pronounce this Gideon. Gideon caught sight of them instantly. Which is a good relative adjective clause to add? A, B, C, D, E, or F? Take a moment to look through those. Once you have one that you think works with the first example, raise your hand and let me know. Sam?
E.
E. Very good. Now, can you say aloud verbally, number 1, with the relative adjective clause injected into it, added to it, and if you add any commas, will you say comma as well?
Alright, got it. Gideon, comma, whose eyes were everywhere at once, comma, caught sight of them instantly.
Beautiful. Perfect. Splitting the subject and the verb. Excellent job. Good, good. Number 2. Sarah opened the paper bag and took out one of the hot buns. A, B, C, D, or F? Which adjective relative clause works with number 2? Victor?
C.
C. Would you add C, the adjective relative clause, to number 2?
Yeah. Sarah opened the paper bag and took out one of the hot buns, comma, which had already warmed her own cold hands a little.
Very good. Excellent job. So you put it in the closing position, so it would modify the hot buns, right? Would anybody put this adjective relative clause in a different position? Or does everybody agree with Victor's placement?
I agree.
You agree? Agree? Very good. Yeah, that works really well. Let's look at number 3. Ramo was standing on one foot and then the other, comma, watching the ship coming. Is it A, B, D, or F? Which adjective relative clause works with number 3? When you have an idea, raise your hand. Good, Victor. Krisha? D. Yeah, very good. Would you add this adjective relative clause into number 3 where it belongs? And if you add any commas, will you say comma? Okay.
Comma, which, okay, so Emily was standing on one foot and the other, watching the ship coming, comma, which she did not know was a ship.
Very good. Nice comma placement if the relative adjective clause is closing the sentence. Beautiful placement. Very good job. And number 4. The old woman was beside him, hunched over as she shuffled along in her soft slippers. Is it A, B, or F that works with number 4? Raise your hand if you have an idea. What about F? Is anybody looking at F? Who wants to attempt to add F, the adjective relative clause, to number 4 where it belongs? Again, this is all about adding more details to make your writing richer, more engaging, and more effective, right? Does anybody see where we could add that adjective relative clause to number 4? Sam?
The old woman, comma, whose arm he held, comma, was beside him, hunched over as she shuffled along in her soft slippers.
Excellent job. Where did you place that adjective relative clause? Which position? Was it opening, closing, or splitting the subject and the verb?
Split.
Splitting the subject and the verb. We know that these adjective relative clauses can close the sentence. We know that they cannot open the sentence. Good, good, Joanna. Very good job. All right. Where we are right now with adjective relative clauses, show me where you are right now with this particular skill. 1, I feel clueless, and you can just show me right in front of you. 5, I feel like an expert. I could teach this to the class in the future. Show me where you're at. 1 through 5. 1, clueless. 5, I'm an expert. Don't talk. Good. Good, good.
I'm not expert.
Good. Excellent, Henry.
I'm an expert.
I'll look to you in the future. I'll look to you too, Drake. Good, Victor. Very good job. All right, give yourselves a round of applause. Very good job, scholars. Excellent job. Any last minute questions, comments, or concerns? Questions, comments, or concerns about adjective relative clauses? Excellent. Very good job.